It's me again, John L. Rice, JLR, and finally another modular synth breakdown for you. It's been 6 months or so, and I just got sidetracked with all kinds of things. So this time we're doing my customized folding synthesizers.com box 11 setup. I happened to get 2 box 11s for a good deal from Junkie XL's sell-off when he sold off his big modular wall and a lot of his stuff. And I decided to make my own folding case out of it. So it's similar but different from the synthesizers.com one you can buy. They have different hinges and it's a slightly different setup. On the bottom it basically has a analog 4-voice, and on the top it has lots of digital modules, and the combination makes it very powerful, and especially in a portable setup. So let's go over the modules. First off, we have the Tidal modulator from Martin Jan Kohler, and it's his 5U version of the Mutable Instruments Tides. So if you're familiar with Tides, you know what this module does. Basically a quad LFO audio oscillator with lots of tricks up its sleeve. Next over is the Grove Audio GMS 742, which is a MIDI to CV interface. It has many different modes, and it can do single voice, duophonic, 4-voice poly, and several other tricks up its sleeve. Next over we have the M2 Synth Sequencer 192 from Soundtronics in the UK. And this is a very powerful sequencer. Has memories and chaining and ratcheting and lots of tricks up its sleeve.
Stop saying that, I hate that!
Next to that we have the Synthetic Sound Labs 1600 U-Synth clock divider, which is a 3-channel clock divider. And next to that we have the Synthetic Sound Labs 1660 The Matrix Algorithmic Composer, which is a sequencer that's very unique in the world of sequencers. And it's based on the Tridex The Muse from many decades ago. Next to that we have the FreeState FX Digital Utilities, which is a 5U version of the Ornament and Crime module. And next to that we have the Basimilus Iteritas Magnus from Noise Engineering, and this is a great digital oscillator. It's a synth voice and has many modulation inputs. It can be used for percussion or melodic lines or bass lines. It's very versatile. Down at the bottom here we have the Moon Modular Dual VCO, and this is an analog VCO, and it has a noise source also. It's a very great sounding audio oscillator with really nice features. Next to that we have the companion module. It's the 501M, which is the mixer module for the oscillator. Next to that we have a Happy Nerding Fun VCF, which is a dual multimode VCF. And then next to that we have, again from FreeState FX, we have the Dual Trigger Processor, which is a 5U version of Mutable Instruments Peaks. And as many of you probably know, Mutable Instruments Peaks is a envelope module, LFO, tap tempo LFO, and drum sounds. And then next to that we have a Grove Audio G714 quad VCA. This does some mixing and it does panning, and it's another powerful module in a single MU. And then the last modules here, it's sort of a mirror image of the other side. We have the dual trigger processor, the Fun VCF, 501M mixer, and another 501D dual oscillator. So that's all the modules. As I mentioned before, these 2 cases are synthesizers.com box 11. Maybe that's all I need to ramble about at this point. Let me get into any modifications I've done. Nothing's been modified on the Tidal modulator or the MIDI to CV interface. The Sequencer 192, I built this from a kit. You can also buy it ready built. I was an early adopter, and so there was a couple things not quite right with it. These 2 screws here aren't normally part of it. There was a problem with the mounting system for the display, so I kind of hacked it a little bit and added these 2 screws to make it work. The only other modification is I used a different knob than they sent me, just to kind of match the Moog format a little bit better. Next to that, the clock divider, for fun, I jelly beaned or stop lighted the LEDs. It comes with all red LEDs, and I put a yellow and a green one just because I felt like it. And this toggle switch here is a modification. And in a previous system, I had a clock module sitting right next to it that was hardwired to this switch. And so when the switch is off, the input to clock input 1 was disconnected. And so by switching it on, it would engage all 3 dividers. With this setup, I don't have a dedicated clock module because the clocks could come from the matrix sequencer, the sequencer 192, or the MIDI to CV interface because it has a MIDI clock output, or the LFO here. Just about anything could be the clock, so I didn't want to hardwire anything in. So what this does is, when the switch is down, when a clock is patched into input 1, it still goes to divider number 1, but it disconnects the input to dividers 2 and 3. So when the switch is up, it routes that internally to 2 and 3. The advantage of this is so I can have the main clock and divider output running something like maybe the sequencer, and then when I want to kick in a couple other voices, I can do that really quickly. And then this little teeny little black button here, it may be hard to see, that is a reset. I took a connection from output 3 and it runs it into the reset when this is held down. So it kind of gives me a synced reset. The Matrix has no modifications other than a few things I suggested during the beta testing period. Next to that, Digital Utilities has no modifications. The Basimilus Iteritas Magnus, or BIM for short, the only modifications here, I put different knobs on it. I like these synth pointer knobs, I forget the number, and I added washers underneath the nuts for the jacks because the washers didn't come with it. Okay, down here, the Moon 501D oscillator has no modifications to it. The 501M mixer has one modification, but I'm not using it in this system. It has a wire connected to the main mixed output. And in a previous system, I had that connected directly to the input of the filter, and the filter went to the VCA, but I'm not doing that here. The Happy Nerding VCA has no mods to it. The Prestate FX dual trigger processor, the Peaks module here, has a couple modifications. It does have larger knobs than came with it, this synth pointer knob I like. And then the little more difficult modification was I normaled trigger input number 2 to trigger input number 1. To do that, I had to cut away the switch lug because it was by default normaled to the ground plane of the PCB. So it was a little bit difficult to do. I didn't want to unsolder the jack completely, so I just kind of cut it away with a Dremel cutoff wheel and wired them together. I did that same modification on this one. That way I can just take my one gate output from the clock divider or a sequencer and plug it into input 1, and it fires both of these. And I did that so I can do the standard synth voice setup of having one of the envelope generators for the VCF and the other envelope generator for the VCA. I didn't normal the voices in this system because there's so many possibilities of patching things up. It didn't seem worth it, and it's pretty easy just to quickly patch up a standard synth voice or whatever I wanted to do. No modifications to the VCA, no modifications to the rest other than similar modifications. There's a wire coming off of here that I'm not using. So that's all the module modifications. Some of the box 11 modifications. Up here, the 2 multiples, I added this switch. It's a center off double pull, double throw switch. And what this is, even though it's not properly labeled, this is a AB switch. So this is, say, the A input, this is the B input, and this is the output. So I can switch between one or the other. This is also, the output of this is also normaled into this multiple. And other than that, this multiple is just still a standard multiple. But until you plug something into this jack, which disconnects the normal to here. Down here, this multiple is still a normal multiple. And this multiple and this knob here, it's now sort of a dual attenuator. And this is a dual concentric pot. So each pot can be adjusted individually, or it's easy to grab both knobs together. The main reason I wanted this is so I can take the stereo output of the quad VCA and have a master level control. So I plug the left and right, or this is basically mix side 1 and 3 and mix side 2 and 4, plug it into these two inputs, and then it goes to the pot here, and then these are my main outputs that I could run. Or if I don't need a master volume control, I could use these both individually as two separate passive attenuators. And that's it. You might notice these screws here. I should have used black, but I didn't have black, so I used the silver ones. This mounts a distribution board for the bottom section, and there's also a similar Analog Craftsman distribution board in this top section, along with the power supply and the AC power inlet. And you can probably see it over here. There's a multi-pin connector and cable that connects the output of the power supply that's in the top case to the bottom case. And just as a little extra insurance, there's a heavy-duty 10-gauge banana plug cable for the 0-volt rail to help things be stabilized. On the back here, you can't really see it, but there's also another banana jack if I need to connect it to a main system or another system. These hinges, sort of overkill, but I thought they looked kind of cool. I searched around for a lot of different solutions, and I decided on these. These were actually self-closing hinges because they have a spring in it, but I'm not using that spring function at all. Initially, I thought it was going to be something I would use to either help keep the halves closed when in transport or to help keep them open, but it's not really needed, and so they're just big honking heavy door hinges there. These two tall rubber bumpers keep the case from closing too far. That way I can actually have it patched fully and close it for transport. That's why the top box 11 is upside down, because there's no room at the very top of these cases to mount a bumper like this. So that's why it's upside down. I think I can close this and show you without changing too much. See, and those just land right there and in between the multiples on this side. These are my little stoppers, so when I pack it up, I fold those up. These don't really hit the desk properly. That kind of hits it on the edge, but it still works well enough. Or if those are up, if I have a flat surface, not really a full table here, but I can lay it out more like that. So and as you saw, I have my logo on the back, and there's little rubber feet here, so when it's sitting in the case, it doesn't sit flat against the ground and gives a little clearance for the power inlet there. I have customized thin aluminum sides, and I'll show an inset for that. My shirt for this video happens to be my Moon Modular Authorized User shirt. My good friend Mark Roberts made this for me, and for Gert at Moon and a few of the guys. We were sort of a team doing a lot of the trade shows together, and Mark generously made up these shirts for us. And it's nice and warm because it's cold in here because it's winter right now. So thank you, Mark. Mark has a massive modular system, and hopefully soon he'll be pumping out some videos for us to drool over. I have a very nice case for this system. Let me just fold that forward, fold those forward. I mean, basically they can stand up. You can see those. Let me do it this way here. See these connectors here. It's just a multi-pin multi-pin connector. I could maybe fit them into the case, but the case wasn't designed to have these connected. And let me do this way. The case made by Studio Slips. They did a great job on this. And if you buy the synthesizers.com folding case that they have their own padded case that's similar to this, but there's a slightly different dimensions than mine. So, okay, it's a little heavy, but just set that in there. That folds up like that, and that's all she wrote. There's a generous pouch. Actually, I didn't mention that in my original power system for this, I had two separate power bricks, one connected to each of the halves of the system, and I was running into some issues with tuning problems with the oscillators and gate problems not being strong enough. They were very small, inexpensive Meanwell power bricks. And so when I switched to the Power One Bell Power MAP 55 switching power supply that's internal now, everything started working a lot better. So you can go cheap, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So good power is very important. That's it for now. I'm going to take a break and then set up some patches and give you some audio examples. You've probably seen my Instagram and YouTube videos. I've done short little clips of this system, but I'll do some new ones. I really appreciate all your views and your likes and comments. Makes it fun for me. So thank you very much. Have a happy 2024. Hope everything is better than ever for all of you. Thank you.